I'm Julie Nelson. Welcome to KARE 11 Extras. These are the stories that take a little extra time to tell, to research, to find. They are meant to inspire, inform, and ignite curiosity. And in this episode, how AI helped Mayo doctors actually reverse the effects of a little girl's genetic disorder.
Good job.
Changing her life forever. Plus, the exploding popularity of a Minnesota artist 25 years after his death. But we begin in the land of 10,000 stories. It goes without saying, Boyd Huppert has heard thousands of stories in his land of 10,000 stories. But the one you're about to hear even leaves Boyd astounded. A story of survival after a 9-year-old takes an arrow to the head.
After 2 goals, we switch.
If you're inclined to believe in miracles,
Go, Gus, get it.
come inside. The Dieterding family appears to have scored one.
Let's go.
That's Sylvia and Hank at center ice. And at goalie, that's Gus,
2-1.
who was on the family's icy driveway back in March before the concrete was poured, loading some things in his dad's truck, including this youth bow and arrow.
I think he was carrying everything at once, and the arrow we think was like right here, and he then fell right on it.
Parents, Abby and Dave.
I was vacuuming downstairs. Dave was getting dressed, and he came in, in a panic, like, whoa, lots of blood.
He had a very small, cut on his head.
Cleaned up, this is the cut.
At home, he kept saying, Mom, am I dying? Am I gonna leave you? I don't wanna leave you yet. And we're like, Gus, no, we're just getting stitches.
They drove to the Alexandria Hospital, where a cautious doctor sent Gus by helicopter to Minneapolis and Children's Minnesota, no one yet knowing how far the arrow had gone.
That's the path the arrow took, and a little bit of hemorrhage along the way.
See that white dot at the top of Gus's head scan? It's a piece of bone carried by the arrow to where it stopped, before Gus, on his own, pulled the arrow back out.
And that scan, I was like, it literally took my breath away, and I felt like sick to my stomach. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, no, that far, what?
Yet there was Gus in a hospital bed at Children's Minnesota, seemingly fine. So fine, doctors at Children's initially sent him back home. These scans weren't taken until his parents brought him back after Gus started vomiting, and doctors finally saw what they couldn't fathom.
He looked too normal.
Ken Maslanka is the doc who heads Children's Pediatric Intensive Care Unit.
I would say in the 28 years I've been at Children's of Minnesota, I've never seen anything like this.
Again, the arrow went through the middle of Gus's brain.
All the sensory and motor function is all coming through here. It came within 2 centimeters of exiting the skull.
Dr. Maslanka made a model showing the arrow's trajectory.
So the carotid artery is right here. Had it hit that would have been death within minutes.
If he'd seen this model without first knowing the outcome,
I would say that this poor, unfortunate 9-year-old young man didn't survive this, based on what I see here.
Yeah, this one was really cool, right?
yet there's Gus
I hope you feel better.
rereading the get well cards from his school.
The best hockey player I know.
It's either fortune at a minimum, or it's heavenly presence of God controlling the direction of that arrow.
Yeah.
For Gus's parents, no question which.
We know it didn't just happen.
This is a miracle.
Yeah.
Family photos of Gus doing normal kid things, all taken since March when he pulled an arrow out of his brain. And the double Gus hit, his first time at bat after returning to his baseball team.
He is as normal as he was beforehand.
If you are inclined to believe in miracles, seldom will you see one clearer.
It is a miracle.
It's a miracle.
Gus spent 6 days at Children's Minnesota. A few weeks later, he was cleared to return to normal activities. His parents haven't pressed Gus to talk about the accident. He seems to prefer not to. The Dieterdings say there were other signs supporting their miracle conclusion, including a chaplain friend randomly inviting Gus's dad to lunch and giving him a blessing for peace and strength hours before the accident. You can now watch full half-hour specials from Boyd's Land of 10,000 Stories right here on KARE 11 Plus. Just look under the News tab at the top. You can also watch every story from the beginning in 2004 by searching for the Land of 10,000 Stories, the complete collection on YouTube. Still ahead, the rare procedure used to save an injured eagle involving fish skin.
She would let me do the treatments awake. It was this just very odd calmness that would come over her, and she let me treat this wound.
An injured eagle is able to fly again after a rare procedure. Sammy Selena has more on the process performed for the first time at a rehab clinic in Wisconsin.
The aroma of breakfast.
The hockey teams use smelling salts. We use Northerns.
Fills Winged Freedom Raptor Hospital in Spooner, Wisconsin.
Squirrels and rabbits, and heavy on Northerns.
Of course, this spread isn't for volunteers.
There we go. You're okay.
But the eagles they care for.
You are just not going to let me have this, are you? All right.
Kim Ammon.
I mop the floors. I do everything from that on up. But yeah, I'm the founder, veterinarian.
Started the nonprofit 2 years ago.
Okay, honey.
So injured birds, including owls and hawks,
Get you back together here.
can fly back to freedom.
There's a lot of training. There's a lot of smell. There's a lot of yuck, gooey fish.
A lot of fish.
But that isn't the hardest part of the job.
I really considered euthanizing her.
10 months ago, an injured eagle was spotted in a campground in Hayward, Wisconsin.
Found some blood and a wound on her leg. And it didn't look that bad to begin with, but as I started to work on it and all, I realized it was huge.
Likely from a fight with another bird, she had quite a gash to heal. But there was another problem.
I needed some way to either harvest a skin graft from her and put it over that as a patch, which was just going to be too big to try and get from anywhere. And so I got on the internet.
It's a biologic dressing that is like replacing the patient's own skin.
Dan Moradian is the chief technology advisor of Kerecis, an Icelandic company that uses fish skin to heal wounds.
It's really a scaffold that the host cells, the eagle's body, grow into and just promotes the natural healing.
So, if you are what you eat,
Yep, that's her. That's Kier.
it only makes sense that Kier's best chance to be in fine feather
I just place it on
is an Icelandic cod.
the area where I want.
Humans use it too.
Microscopically, looks identical to human skin. And so since it comes from the cold, clean waters of Iceland, it retains all of the useful structure and factors in normal skin.
Still, Kier had to be treated for months, living a life opposite of what eagles stand for.
And they came to represent freedom and everything that's wild.
When Kim retired from her traditional vet role,
Okay.
she made her dream a reality,
Oh, yeah.
bringing a hospital like this to rural Wisconsin. It was retirement that allowed her to spread her wings. Now she's fighting for Kier to spread hers.
She would let me do the treatments awake. It was this just very odd calmness that would come over her, and she let me treat this wound. It was her personality and her willingness to work with me.
But that composure is no longer required.
She took us for a good chase this morning.
Finally, Kier is fully healed up
It's nice, thick skin.
I'll probably start crying.
and has an audience of volunteers who cared for her.
She's excited. We're excited. She's ready to go.
The price of her freedom is small.
Yeah, I'm a little sad. Yeah, it was a little emotional kind of looking at her and saying, this is the last time I'm going to hold you and touch you. Ready?
Compared to the reward of seeing Kier free as a bird.
Bye, sweetheart.
With photojournalist Mitchell Yale,
Hayward's the other way.
Sammy Solina,
Yay! Woohoo!
KARE 11 News.
Along with birds and humans, the skin procedure has been used on horses, dogs, a turtle, and a fish. Still to come, the exploding popularity of a Minnesota artist 25 years after his death.
He has finally kind of gotten his due.
Whether you know his name or not, chances are you've seen George Morrison's art in public, in galleries, or on U.S. postage stamps. But now Morrison's work is being featured on a whole new level as he receives his first solo exhibition at the world-renowned Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. It's an honor Morrison didn't live to see, but as Ken Erdahl reports, it comes at a time when his work and legacy are more relevant than ever.
The work of artist George Morrison has quietly shaped the Twin Cities landscape for decades.
When I was a kid, I always marveled at the feather design on the side of the American Indian Center over on Franklin Avenue. And when I started teaching at the University of Minnesota, I liked to visit his wood collage over here in the law school. This is very beautiful.
As director of the U of M's new George Morrison Center for Indigenous Arts, Brenda Child now gets to amplify that beauty.
I like to bring students here because they see different things. They see his famous horizon line when they look at it.
That horizon line not only runs through most of Morrison's career-defining work, it also inspired it.
I get that from my childhood. That's how you would say.
Breond Morrison.
Yes, I get that from my childhood.
Says his father's work was shaped by this landscape, the Grand Portage Indian Reservation along Lake Superior.
My grandfather's grandfather walked on this beach.
And now, 25 years after Morrison died here, his life's work will be celebrated far beyond this horizon.
I just like to tell people that there's an Ojibwe artist with a big show in New York City.
In the magical city, George Morrison's New York, the Met shines an international spotlight on Morrison's time away from Minnesota, attending the city's Art Students League and his abstract expressionist works that propelled the movement through the 1940s, 50s, and beyond.
He was established. He had over 40 one-man shows by the time I was born in 1961.
He painted with artists like William de Kooning, Jackson Pollock, Franz Klein, and we've seen exhibits that he did in New York with those artists.
But Robert Snell, co-owner of Revere Auctions in St. Paul, has never seen Morrison's work more appreciated than it is right now.
He has finally kind of gotten his due. Every single time we have a work by George Morrison, we get inquiries about it from all over the world.
And much of it can be found in museums right here. The Met's curator spent years working with the Minnesota Museum of American Art in St. Paul, which contributed 12 pieces and is still home to the biggest collection of Morrison's work.
We have to kind of realize and appreciate in Minnesota that he's not just a local guy who's done well, but he is in fact a leader in those art movements.
You know, he did interesting things.
And he later led the movement back to familiar ground.
This is a sidewalk, granite inlay into the Nicollet Mall.
Because we're surrounded by his public art, in some ways we take it for granted.
Morrison returned to Minnesota in 1970 to teach art and American Indian Studies at the U of M. And a few years later, he built a cabin and studio back on the reservation.
I live with my dad's paintings all around me.
To reconnect with the horizon that started it all.
These are unfinished works that I found, even though it's unfinished. You know, I love it.
He was very influenced by Gitche Gumee. He was obsessed with Lake Superior.
He painted these in Grand Portage. These really showcase Morrison's talent as an artist.
It's no wonder why demand for those small but intricately layered horizon paintings is now sky high.
5 or 6 years ago at auction, these used to go for around $8,000 to $12,000. Today, we're looking at $30,000 to $50,000.
That may be. But Breond says the story behind them,
and he even talked about it,
is priceless.
My father was sick, and my mother got these boards so he could work and paint in bed. And she got all the paints for him, and he did it. And he started painting from that bed right up there.
And soon, his father's big exhibition will culminate with some of those little paintings from this very place.
I'm just happy for him. It's extraordinary to have his work shown there. It's a pinnacle it's a wonder, you know. And I'm sorry, just everything, the examples that he left behind and the way he lived his life. He was a good man.
A man who changed multiple landscapes.
It was his dream to come back home.
Without losing sight of his horizon.
Plain and simple, the work itself is of such a high quality that it lasts. It is part of history now.
Morrison's exhibit will continue through May of next year.
A rare disease. An even rarer treatment.
Where's your elbow?
Nice! How AI helped propel a medical breakthrough. And how it could help others, too. Next.
Imagine your baby born with a disorder so rare it barely existed in medical literature. Then imagine the effects of that disorder medically reversed. AI actually helped Mayo doctors do just that. Rena Sargentopoulos shows us how and how it could help others too.
Fly like a butterfly.
Ask any expecting parent, do you want a boy or a girl?
Where's your elbow? Nice!
The answer usually is, we just want them to be healthy.
You did it! Good job!
Going through IVF, Joni and Dave Kraus thought health issues were in the clear, as genetic testing was done as part of the process.
We had our 20-week scan. They found out that she was a little bit small, and they found an undefined heart issue. They didn't quite know what it was. And so we prayed for wisdom, and we went to Mayo for a second opinion.
At 33 weeks, the doctors at Mayo decided a C-section was the best option. Jory Kraus was welcomed into the world.
And they immediately ended up putting her into one of those little incubator things and shipped her off over to the St. Mary's campus. Had both women in my life in two different buildings and trying to split time between both and keep them both okay.
Jory would go on to spend 73 days in the NICU. It turned out she had not one but 5 heart issues, among some other physical anomalies, but nothing that couldn't be overcome.
How are we going to fix it and how we're going to address it? And this wonderful surgeon told Dave, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to figure all of this out. You just need to worry about who she's taking to prom.
Joni and Dave allowed themselves to exhale. But it's not where their baby girl's story ends. Genetic testing came back, a problem. Jory was missing part of her chromosome 10, a spontaneous deletion during pregnancy, meaning it was not inherited from either parent, which is why it wasn't caught during the IVF process. Jory was diagnosed with DeSanto-Shinawi syndrome, a rare genetic disorder that was the cause of her physical issues, but would also cause low muscle tone, developmental delays, and intellectual disabilities. At the time, just a couple dozen people in the world had the same diagnosis.
Joni was asking a little bit about what does that mean, and I just sort of piped up and said that means it's permanent. There's nothing, this one doesn't have a fix, this one doesn't have a surgery. And that's when I had to get up and leave the room.
With no cure, early interventions like physical and speech therapies were the only options. A year passed, and as Jory fell behind with her milestones like crawling and talking, Joni and Dave pushed forward, fighting for answers.
We're at the best hospital in the world. Where's the groundbreaking genetic research? And she had this smile, this big, big smile, and she goes, have you met Dr. Whitney Thompson?
They had, in fact, met Dr. Thompson. She was working in the NICU when they ordered the genetic testing or rapid genome sequencing for Jory right after birth. And since that time, Dr. Thompson had started a new project with Dr. Laura Lambert called Baby Force.
We can send this comprehensive genetic test day 1 in the NICU and get a diagnosis within that first week of life, and it can really make a huge difference for patients. But often we get the diagnosis, but we don't have a treatment, and that's really where Baby Force comes in.
The doctors take a patient's own skin cells and grow them in a lab. Using artificial intelligence, they search for already FDA-approved drugs that could potentially help. Then they test them on the patient's lab-grown cells to see if it works.
Taking a drug that's already approved and already known to be safe really circumvents all of those issues that the rare disease population faces. So we don't have to have that major investment into running a clinical trial because it's off-label use.
For Jory, the top hit from AI was an inexpensive drug commonly used to treat seizures in children. In the lab, it worked like a charm, boosting the levels of the working chromosome to compensate for the deleted one. Since the concept is so new, they had to go through ethics and legal departments first. Jory just started taking the medicine a few months ago. Turns out,
whoa!
It's working like a charm in real life, too.
Good job.
Within days, Jory started going up and down stairs, walking with a walker, even starting to say words.
It's like she was getting the information in, understanding it, but then just couldn't figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
And now she's starting to figure out what to do with it.
A treatment for an ultra-rare disease would normally take years, if at all. The success in Jory's case opens a door of hope for others in the future.
We're focused on the NICU because certainly the earlier we intervene, potentially the more impact we can have on somebody's life. And the hope is we can move that timeline up even more and start treating before symptoms even develop.
We know this could benefit patients who are born with genetic differences, but it also has applications for cancer, for example, where we could sequence an individual's tumor and understand what's causing the cancer and look for drugs using AI to try to have an impact for those patients as well.
Okay, let's go, 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 go.
Endless possibilities, which is also what these doctors have given Jory.
She's going to be the best Jory that she can be. The barriers have been removed from her.
She's just such a joy. And, you know, we just hope that out of all the hardship that we went through and all that she has gone through, that it will be a beacon of hope to others. I did it!
Rena did extensive interviews with Joni and the doctors. You can watch the entire 30-minute special on the Jory effect right now, right here on KARE 11 Plus. And remember, you can continue to catch up on the KARE 11 Extras right here on KARE 11 Plus. Go to the news menu at the top, then scroll down to Extras. Thanks for watching.